The rain soaked through my threadbare jacket as I stood on the immaculate lawn, watching movers carry handcrafted Italian furniture into my sister Emma's new mansion. Crystal chandeliers glinted through floor-to-ceiling windows, catching the few rays of sunlight that managed to break through Boston's dreary October sky. "Isn't it perfect?" my mother gushed, not noticing, or perhaps not caring, that I was drenched and shivering. A $2.8 million masterpiece in Beacon Hill. The Hendersons next door paid nearly $4 for theirs, and it's not nearly as charming. A wedding gift from our parents, because apparently nothing says congratulations on your marriage quite like real estate that costs more than I'll earn in my lifetime. "It's beautiful, Mom," I managed, water dripping from my hair onto the professionally landscaped grass. Emma emerged from the mahogany double doors, immaculate in channel, her 4-carat diamond engagement ring practically launching light beams across the lawn. "Madison, you finally made it," she called, her voice carrying that familiar hint of condescension. "What do you think of our starter home?" Starter home. As if a mansion in Boston's most exclusive neighborhood was merely a temporary stop on her journey to even greater opulence. "It's lovely," I said, fumbling in my worn messenger bag. "I brought a card." The congratulations card had cost $7.50, an extravagance when my rent was already 2 weeks late. The bookstore where I worked had cut my hours again, and my checking account was hovering dangerously close to double digits. "Oh, a card, how?" Emma paused, searching for a word that wouldn't sound overtly insulting. "Thoughtful. Don't be jealous, Maddie," she continued, using the nickname I'd despised since childhood. "I'm sure you'll find someone special too. Maybe one of those literary types at your little bookshop." My mother jumped in before I could respond. "The Henderson boy is still single, you know. An accountant now, very stable career. I could arrange a dinner." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted copper. At 32, I had a master's degree in literature, was halfway through writing a novel, and had edited 3 anthologies of emerging writers. But to my family, I remained the disappointment, the daughter who chose books over business, dreams over security, passion over pragmatism. "I should go," I said quietly, backing away from Emma's perfectly manicured lawn. "My shift starts soon." On a Saturday, my mother frowned, pearl earrings catching the light as she tilted her head in practiced concern. "But we're having a family dinner to celebrate. Some of us have to work weekends, Mom." Emma rolled her eyes dramatically. "Still so theatrical, Maddie. This is why you struggle, you know, always choosing the difficult path instead of accepting help." Help. The word hung between us, loaded with unspoken history. Help like the full ride to business school I'd turned down. Help like the position at Dad's investment firm I'd refused. Help like the endless parade of suitable men I'd avoided. What they called help, I called golden handcuffs, designed to shape me into their version of success, while slowly suffocating the person I actually wanted to be. "The bookstore is short-staffed," I said, already turning to leave, "and I need the hours." "Well," my mother sighed, "at least take some leftovers home. I hate thinking of you eating alone in that tiny apartment." I didn't tell her that my tiny apartment above Blackwell Books was my sanctuary, a space filled with dog-eared paperbacks, art from local creators, and the peaceful absence of judgment. A place where I could write until dawn without explanation, dream without limits, and exist without constantly failing to meet impossible expectations. "Thanks, Mom. I'll see you all later." As I walked away, I heard Emma stage whisper, "Do you think she even owns an umbrella? She looks like a drowned rat." The next morning, I stopped at Pete's corner store for my usual coffee. Pete, a grandfather figure who'd been running the shop for 40 years, greeted me with unusual excitement. "Madison," he exclaimed, waving me toward the counter where he stood beside his ancient register. "Did you check your ticket?" I blinked, confused, then remembered the lottery ticket I'd bought 2 days earlier. A whimsical impulse purchase with my last $5 when the jackpot had hit record numbers. "Not yet," I admitted, fishing the crumpled paper from my wallet. "What were the winning numbers?" Pete's eyes, magnified behind thick glasses, sparkled with mischief. "Check the news, sweetheart." I pulled out my phone, navigating to the lottery website. The winning numbers appeared on screen: 7, 13, 24, 31, 42, 53. My hands began to tremble as I compared them to my ticket. Once, twice, 3 times. "Pete," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the store's humming fluorescent lights. "I think I won." He grinned, revealing the gap between his front teeth. "I know you did, honey. I watched them draw your numbers live last night, all 6 matching. You just won $97 million. The world tilted sideways. The coffee shop's worn linoleum floor seemed to ripple beneath my feet as I grabbed the counter for support. "Sit down before you fall down." Pete guided me to a wooden chair behind the counter. Deep breaths. "This is big news, but you need to be smart now. Don't tell anyone yet. Get a lawyer first. And for heaven's sake, sign that ticket." With trembling fingers, I scrawled my signature on the back of the small paper that had just altered the trajectory of my life. Pete locked it in his ancient safe, made me drink a glass of water, and called his daughter, a respected financial attorney. "Caroline will meet you in an hour," he said, squeezing my shoulder with a weathered hand. "She'll help you do this right." I nodded, still dazed. "Pete, my family." He fixed me with a stern look, one he usually reserved for shoplifters. "They'll find out soon enough. But right now, this is your moment. Don't let anyone take it from you." As I waited for Caroline, my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Family brunch tomorrow to discuss wedding plans. Wear something nice for once and try not to be late, like always." I stared at the message, thinking of her mansion, her perfect life, our parents' endless praise. For 20 years, I'd been the family afterthought, the daughter they'd written off as impractical, unsuccessful, lost. Now I had 97 million reasons to prove them wrong. I texted back, "Sorry, can't make it. I have something more important to do." For once, I wasn't lying. 3 weeks later, I sat in my new lawyer's office, signing the final papers to claim my winnings. Caroline, Pete's daughter, had been invaluable, helping me set up trusts, investment accounts, and ironclad privacy protections. "Remember," she said, reviewing the documents one final time, "once we submit these, your name becomes public record." Are you ready for that? I thought of the changes I'd already made. I'd quietly resigned from the bookstore, leaving my manager a generous check to help hire and train my replacement. I'd bought a beautiful but modest house in a quiet neighborhood, using a trust to keep my name off public records. And I'd started the groundwork for my own publishing company, determined to help overlooked writers find their voices. "I'm ready," I said firmly. The next morning, my face was splashed across every news outlet in Boston. L'hôtel de TR has $97 million, l'hôtel Jack Pilote. Beau Testori employee BC Omanis, Emultai Amaya overnight. Madison Ban ATTC Alames Rico Ardu Bar A King Rizy. My phone exploded with messages, old classmates, distant relatives, forgotten acquaintances, all suddenly remembering my existence. But the messages I was waiting for came last. First Emma, "OMG Maddie, why didn't you tell us? Call me immediately." Then Mom, "Madison Elizabeth Bennett, how could you keep this from your family? We're coming over right now. Where are you living?" Finally Dad, "Your mother is hysterical. Call us this instant." I turned off my phone and poured myself a cup of tea, settling into the window seat of my new home office. Through the glass, I could see the garden where I planned to create a reading nook with a stone bench and climbing roses. The morning sun painted everything in soft gold, making the moment feel almost magical. My doorbell rang. Through the security camera, another of Caroline's suggestions, I saw them, my parents and Emma, standing on my porch like characters from a catalog. Emma was dressed as if heading to a photo shoot, while my mother kept smoothing her designer dress nervously. I took a deep breath and opened the door. "Madison," my mother burst out, her voice pitched high with anxiety. "We've been so worried. Why haven't you answered our calls? And how did you afford this house? The lottery money hasn't even been released yet and—" "Hello, Mother." I cut her off calmly. "Would you like to come in?" They filed into my living room, taking in the tasteful furnishings and wall-to-wall bookshelves with barely concealed surprise. "Well," Emma said, running a finger along a shelf of first editions, "I suppose now you can finally move to a better neighborhood. Maybe near my new house? There's a lovely little colonial for sale, Only 4 million. I'm happy here, I interrupted, but thank you for your concern. Maddie, darling, my mother leaned forward, her voice dripping with honey. You have to understand our shock. This is life-changing money. You'll need guidance, proper financial advice. Your father knows several excellent wealth managers. I have a team of advisors, I said. And it's Madison, not Maddie. Don't be difficult, Emma snapped, crossing her legs in a way that showcased her Louboutin heels. We're trying to help. God knows you've never been good with money. Like that time I loaned you $10,000 for your ridiculous writing workshop. You mean the loan you never paid back? I asked quietly. Emma's face flushed. That was different. I needed. What you needed was to take responsibility. I stood up, my voice steady, something none of you have ever expected from me. Now see here, my father finally spoke, his face reddening. We've always supported you both equally. I laughed, actually laughed. Equally? You bought Emma a mansion for her wedding. You paid for her business school, her first car, her perfect wedding. What did you give me for graduation? A lecture about practical career choices. Because we worried about you. My mother cried, clutching her designer handbag like a shield. Your choices were so impractical. We just wanted me to be like Emma, I finished. The perfect daughter, the sensible one. Well, guess what? My impractical choice led me here. My job at the bookstore, the one you all look down on, is where I bought the winning ticket. And now you can finally have a real life, Emma said, as if she was being generous. We can help you invest, get you into the right social circles. No. The room fell silent. What do you mean, no? My father demanded, the vein in his forehead pulsing dangerously. I walked to my desk and pulled out 3 envelopes. Emma, this is a cashier's check for $110,000, repaying the loan you've conveniently forgotten about. I handed her the first envelope. Mom, Dad, this is a check for $15,000, the total of every gift, every payment, every contribution you've ever made to my life. I've kept careful records. They stared at the envelopes, speechless. The third envelope, I continued, contains documents showing I've already established my own publishing company, created a charitable foundation for literacy programs, and set up my investments with one of the top firms in the country. I didn't need your guidance then, and I certainly don't need it now. But we're family, my mother whispered, her perfectly applied makeup cracking along with her composure. Yes, we are. And family should love unconditionally, support dreams, not squash them, celebrate differences, not try to erase them. I walked to the door and opened it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a meeting with my foundation board about funding new libraries in underserved communities. You're making a mistake, my father said stiffly. You need us. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in years. No, Dad, you need me. And that's the real reason you're here, isn't it? Emma stood up, her face a mask of fury. You think you're better than us now because of some lucky numbers? No, Emma. I always was. You just never saw it. As they left, my mother turned back, tears in her eyes. Madison, please. We made a terrible mistake. We see that now. Can't we start over? I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw for the first time how small she seemed, how all of them seemed trapped in their narrow view of success and worth. Maybe someday, I said softly, but not today. I closed the door on their protests, walking back to my office. On my desk sat the manuscript of my novel, a story about a woman finding her voice in a world that tried to silence her. It was time to write the next chapter. 6 months later, the launch party for Bennett Publishing House was everything I'd dreamed of. We transformed an old warehouse into a magical space filled with books, art, and possibility. Local authors whose works we'd signed mingled with literary agents and journalists, while kids from our literacy program proudly showed off their own stories in a special display area. Pete stood beside me, beaming like a proud father. Look at what you've built, Madison, and not a penny wasted on showing off. He was right. While I could have easily bought a gleaming downtown office tower, I'd chosen to renovate this historic building instead, creating a space that felt like home to writers and readers alike. The millions I'd won had been carefully invested in education programs, in supporting new authors, in building something meaningful. My phone buzzed, a text from Emma. Saw your company in the Business Journal. Must be nice having everything handed to you. Pito, James lost his job. We could use some family support right now. I deleted the message without responding. Over the past months, they'd tried everything: guilt, manipulation, fake kindness, and finally outright demands. Emma's starter mansion was apparently too small now. Mom and Dad's country club membership needed renewal. James's failed investments needed covering. I'd ignored them all. Miss Bennett? A young girl tugged at my sleeve. She was one of our literacy program students, clutching a notebook decorated with stickers. Will you read my story? Of course, Sophie. I led her to a quiet corner, sitting down at her level. What's it about? A girl who finds a magic pen, she said shyly. Everything she writes comes true, but she has to figure out what's really important to write about. I smiled, thinking how wisdom sometimes comes from the most unexpected places. Madison? I looked up. My mother stood there, looking uncomfortable in the casual atmosphere. She'd lost some of her polished perfection. The past months had been hard on them, I knew. Dad's firm had lost several major clients, Emma's perfect marriage was showing cracks, and their social circle had begun to shrink as their resources dwindled. Mom, this is a private event. I know. I had to talk to you. She glanced at Sophie. Alone. I turned to Sophie. Why don't you show your story to Miss Sarah? She's our children's book editor. After Sophie scampered off, I faced my mother. Well? Your father's company is failing, she said bluntly. Emma's house is being foreclosed. Everything's falling apart, and you're here playing with children's stories. I stood up, anger flaring. Playing? Look around, Mom. Really, look. See those kids? They're learning to love reading, to believe in their own voices. See those authors? They're getting chances they never had before. I'm not playing. I'm building something real. But your family has never respected my choices. I cut in. Even now, you're not here because you care about what I've built. You're here because you need money. She flinched. We're still your family. Are you? I walked her over to our wall of success stories, photos of children reading, authors signing their first contracts, community programs making real change. Family celebrates each other's victories. Family supports each other's dreams. When was the last time you asked about my novel, my goals, my happiness? I don't know. Exactly. I turned to face her. The lottery didn't change who I am, Mom. It just gave me the freedom to stop seeking approval I was never going to get. Tears filled her eyes. We were wrong. I see that now. But can't you forgive us? Forgiveness isn't the issue, I said gently. I forgave you months ago. That's why I'm not angry anymore. But forgiveness doesn't mean letting people keep hurting you. What do you want from us? Nothing. That's the point. I don't need anything from you anymore. And until you can want a relationship with me that isn't about money or status or your idea of success, we don't have anything to discuss. A commotion near the entrance caught my attention. Emma had arrived with Dad and James in tow. Really? I sighed. You all came to ambush me at my company's launch. We're desperate. Emma cried, mascara running down her cheeks. James lost everything in that investment scheme. The bank is taking our house, and Daddy's company is dying. Please, Maddie, you have to help us. The room had gone quiet, our guests trying to pretend they weren't watching the drama unfold. I looked at my family, really looked at them. Dad, gray and deflated without his usual power. Emma, designer clothes now slightly worn, desperate for a bailout. Mom, torn between pride and need. No, I said firmly. No. Dad's voice cracked. I'll make you all a different offer instead. I pulled out my phone, pulling up some photos. This is Carter Financial Services. They're looking for experienced advisors with community connections, Dad. They've agreed to interview you for a senior position. No guarantees, but a fair shot. I swiped to the next photo. Emma, the local arts center, needs a fundraising coordinator. With your social skills and event planning experience, you'd be perfect. James, my friend's construction company, is hiring project managers. Real work, fair pay. You want us to work for other people? Emma asked, horrified. I want you to earn your own way, like I did. Build something real. Find out who you are without the fancy titles and borrowed money. And if we refuse? Dad asked stiffly. Then you'll figure something else out, but you won't get a dime from me to maintain the lifestyle that made us all so unhappy. Mom stepped forward, surprising me. The Arts Center, they really think Emma would be good at fundraising? Yes, because she is good at it when she's actually trying, not just playing the perfect daughter. Emma wiped her eyes, smearing expensive mascara. I don't know how to be anything else. Yes, you do. I took her hand the first time we touched in months. You're smart, capable, and determined. Use those qualities for something meaningful instead of just appearances. Dad cleared his throat. The position at Carter Financial. When's the interview? Tomorrow at 10. Don't wear your Rolex. Show them your experience, not your ego. One by one, they nodded, not happy, not grateful, but perhaps thoughtful. As they left, Mom turned back. Your company, it's really amazing, Madison. I'm sorry we never saw. I know, I said softly. Maybe someday you'll see me too. After they were gone, Pete appeared at my side. You okay, kiddo? I looked around at my publishing house, at the dreams being born, the stories being told, the lives being changed. You know what, Pete? I really am. Sophie came running back, waving her notebook. Miss Bennett. Miss Sarah loved my story. She said maybe someday it could be a real book. I knelt down beside her. Want to know a secret, Sophie? Every real book starts with someone brave enough to tell their story. Like you. Like all of us. Later that night, I sat in my garden reading nook, working on my novel. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. I have an interview at the Art Center tomorrow. Any advice? I smiled, typing back, be yourself. Your real self. The lottery hadn't just given me millions. It had given me the chance to show my family, and myself, what real wealth looked like. Not the money in my bank account, but the courage to finally be exactly who I was meant to be. And that was worth more than any number could measure.